Hello again, everyone. I'm up here again. Long time no see. My name is Seva. I'm here from New York, representing this queer underground outfit called UNTER. I'm here to talk to you about scene ethics and guidelines. So essentially, it's a bunch of these early ideas, concepts, and practices that a number of current underground and queer underground parties, and even some few select legitimate above ground clubs use at this point in time right now to make sure that their events are safe and fun for everyone, not just the status quo. These ideas come to us from actually the early electronic dance music communities, places like Midwest rave scene, the early Chicago house scene, queer scene, of course, early Detroit techno, and early Berlin techno, of course. And these ideas are today in our hands because they make sense and they do the job. And of course, the job that they do is to help us to allow people to have meaningful experiences on the dance floor. That's really it. That's what this is about. In fact, this is why we're all here today, to try and figure out ways in which we can help each other, to come up with ways to allow our partygoers to have profound, meaningful experiences on the dance floor. So with that in mind, I'm going to run you guys down some of these event ethics and guidelines. And when I'm done, we can do some Q&A. So let's get into this. A promoter or a club owner or a festival runner has really precious few means and ways, opportunities to get the message across, allow their partygoers, their constituents, ticket buyers, to understand what the rules and regulations are, what they want them to do, what they don't want them to do. One of the best ways to do this is, of course, through the email. Email is a great tool to let people know what you want them to do and not to do. And here's a great example. I'm just going to run you guys through some of these examples. Here's a great example of an email. This comes from a party called Black Hole, which is an underground queer techno not queer, just underground techno outfit in Brooklyn. These guys do a really great job of running a super tight ship. It's a small party, and they mean for it to be a really small party. It's a small party to this day, actually. And their email says this: alchemy policy. And this is, by the way, this is important to note, it's from April 2019, so pretty recent. And they get right into it. Come as you are, and remember that absolutely no misconduct will be tolerated. The Black Hole is a platform to showcase diversity in the techno scene, so there will be no racism, homophobia, transphobia, xenophobia, or sexual harassment allowed. So they let you know right away what they don't want you to do. If you are caught violating this rule, you will be removed with no re-entry or refund. Fair enough. Okay. No questions asked. Okay. If at any point you experience or witness harassment of any kind, please come directly to one of the collective members to report it. This is kind of a really interesting sentence that a lot of people run through, don't pay attention to, but this is interesting to me because it's not them asking you to narc on someone or like go and tell on someone. This is actually a great exercise in what I feel is community building. Here in this sentence, they tell you that if you experience or witness any harassment of any kind, please come and tell us so that we could jump on top of this problem quicker and fix this issue faster, because you and I, you partygoers and us promoters, are really on the same side of the divide. We're part of the same community. They're letting you know about this. Just tell us so that we could take care of this issue really quickly and maybe prevent something terrible from happening. So that's important to me anyway. Next, the Black Hole is a safe space for all, so we intend to keep it that way. And now with that said, they move on to their promotional mumbo jumbo, of which I have a lot. So here's another example of promo mumbo jumbo. This is an example of an email that I pulled out from my archives that we sent to our, this is important to note, to our ticket holders. So these people already bought the tickets. They get this email. They're ready to go. This was from a party that we did with this woman in 2018. I actually had gone back to our archives in 2015 and 2016 and looked at all those emails. And all of them included some of this language, but in 2019, as of now, I really didn't feel like a lot of those earlier emails were or are appropriate for right now. So I just pulled out the last one that really made sense in terms of the language. So let's go through this. Hello, ticket holder. Let's talk about some rules because you may be ejected, banned if you are found in violation of the below. I waste no time in like no niceties, no hey, how's it going? No. We're gonna kick you out if you violate any of the following. There's no photography or video at UNTER ever. Violators will be ejected. You know, something Zach talked about earlier, I believe. Generally try to keep your phones in your pockets at all times as there is no cell phone use on our dance floors. Also something Zach spent a long time talking about. Refer to that video for that as to why. We seek to create and maintain a safe and diverse space where consent and respect are our first priorities. And the language here also is really important. We don't say, well, this is a safe space, because to be honest, some pretty horrendous stuff has happened at UNTER and continues to happen. We can't guarantee that this is a safe space. So the language here is that we seek to create and maintain a safe space. This is important to note because we don't necessarily want to be held accountable for some, you know, we are always accountable, of course, but we don't want people to think that this is a complete crazy stuff happens all the time. It's just important for us to let people know that we do our best to create and maintain a safe space. Further, we talk about making sure that people don't willfully damage or compromise the space, because more often than not, the space is not ours, and it's important that the space remains intact, or our guests or employees in any manner, harassment of any kind, and that's where we go into phobias. No, that whole list that I just went over in the black hole email. None of that will be tolerated and will lead to immediate discharge from the venue. This includes any sort of harassment and aggression both inside and outside the space, meaning that before you even enter the party, outside the party, we make sure that you understand that you are following our rules even before you get there, which is really important to us. And further, anyone seen in possession, using, or aiding use of GBL or GHB, a potentially deadly chemical, will be swiftly escorted out and henceforth barred for life from all future UNTER events. Everyone knows what G is, I'm assuming. So here, I don't say anyone seen in possession of ketamine or aiding in use of cocaine. Those are not particularly deadly chemicals, but this thing we know is killing people all across the dance floors of the world. So we take a really harsh stance on this and we make it apparent. If you're found with it or aiding someone doing it, you are gone forever. In fact, 2 weeks ago, I had to ban a close friend of mine from this party for doing it. He was really upset. For these reasons, a ticket does not guarantee entry and will be voided if you are to be found in violation of any of these regulations or our community's collective ethics, which you can read up on here. What is that? What are our community's collective ethics? And there's a little PDF link. And that same link you can actually see at the very top of our website. Literally the first thing you see on the website that you can read is this little link that says, please download and study this rave ethics guide before attending. What is that? Well, in 2013, a small collective of Canadian people, 2013, this is crazy. This is years before any of these conversations that we're having right now were ever had. 2013. These people got together and put together this PDF called Rave Ethics, comprising of 3 major sections: ethical behavior, safety, and fun. Page number 1, big shock. No flash on the dance floor, 2013, okay? This community of people, the editor, creator, person who wrote the text, illustrators, completely separate from us. They might have known who Devious One was, maybe not. They're really adamant about no photography on the dance floor. And they tell you, no flash on the dance floor. By trying to capture the moment, you end up ruining it. Think before you flash. Page number 1, right? Page number 2, and this is really important page. This is a page comprised of essays written by women relaying their experiences on the dance floor. I'm just going to read one. It's a tough one. Okay. I never look more than 1 meter away from my feet when I dance because I'm afraid to accidentally make eye contact with a guy that has been staring at me, waiting for that occasion to interrupt me, come closer to touch me, start following me around. I dance at the back or in big circles if I'm being stared at or chased. I'll feel like I have to run away or be less visible in order to stay safe instead of just keeping the spot I like and staying with my friends. A real experience by a real person and several others relaying to others who are reading this document what it's really like to be a woman in a space where men are actually being predatory. So this is an important read, page 2 of this document, which I ran in my class at NYU, and a lot of male students found fascinating that never even thought of it that way for some reason. I mean, obvious reason why, they're just young kids. But a lot of these male students of mine found it really interesting and kind of eye-opening. And we also feel that this was an important thing for us to keep in this document, which we share with all of our partygoers. Next, if you absolutely have got to hit on a person at a club, if that's your goal, where you can't help it, you have to make your intentions known to this person, there's a guide on how to hit on a human being, including be visible, ask for consent, don't interrupt someone dancing, don't stare, don't follow, and on, like an actual guide on how to do it respectfully. Amazing job. Then there are really well-designed tips and thoughts regarding drugs and raves, and a lot of this stuff relates, of course, to the concept of harm reduction, which is mostly what contemporary conversations about drugs revolve around. People are going to do drugs. A lot of it is just about making sure that people don't hurt themselves and others around them. And things like know your drugs, know yourself, trust your instincts, know your source, and so on. And then there's a section on taking care of your body, assess and recharge, refuel, and you know what to do, and post-rave and rest and all that sort of stuff. Really useful advice. And I even popped a little tiny URL link so that if anyone's interested in actually downloading this, the creators of this document would love nothing more than for everyone in the world to download this document, use it as their own, distribute it, use it as their party's ethical guide. That's what they want. They've essentially spent time and money and resources to create this document so that we and our partygoers could just use it and, again, enjoy safer dance floors. So other opportunities to allow people to understand your stance on ethics and guidelines and your rules, primarily kind of center around signage. You know, once you're done with the email, what else do you have? So you have the environment and signage, and a lot of signage focuses around crowd safety and compliance. So I'm just going to run through some of these examples with you guys. These come to us from a party called Buttons from Berlin. Let's just look into some of these. So yes to vaginas, boobs, buttons, dicks, and rabbit butts, but no to phones. This is probably, you see this sign probably the most around their space. Same for this next sign. Our DJs are not there to watch you on your phone. Not on the dance floor, please. A few things are more annoying and frustrating than seeing a DJ try to do their thing while someone else is on the phone in front of them or photographing them. It's so sad. It's really tragic. Next sign is no to yakking on the phone, yes to cupcakes. Hilarious. I mean, live your life, girl. But seriously, this was great about Queer Nightlife. Even some of the more serious topics will just be dealt with humor, which is something that Julianne Huxtable referred to earlier. Funny stuff, but also kind of resonates and sinks in if it's funny. And this last one is really fascinating. This one says, this is usually hung obviously outside of a toilet stall. This stall is reserved for our friends that need to use the toilet sitting down. Single occupancy only. What do you think that means? This is to let you know if you really need to go and do drugs somewhere in the toilet, don't go in there, because that's actually for people who need to sit down and use this bathroom. So this is a really thoughtful, this is just so caring, I feel like. It's a really caring gesture towards those that are not trying to do drugs and just trying to pee in the club. We definitely stole that from them. We're using it these days. Great idea. This is poster from Honey Sound System Party from San Francisco that says, turns out that most people who go to Honey Sound System parties care about a safe and easy night out for everyone involved. If you aren't one of those people and brought GHB into this space, girl bye, live your life, but not on the dance floor. Great poster. I think these guys also got into a tiny bit of trouble with this poster because some people thought that they were telling others to go die somewhere else. Of course, that is not, no, that's not what they meant, but it's also an interesting lesson in that you kind of have to be careful with the language. But that's not at all what they meant, of course. They meant that we can't, and I agree with these guys, we can't tell people what to do with their time and with their health. We can, however, tell them not to do it in this space. You want to go and do it somewhere else? Please be my guest, but just please not on this dance floor. And that's what they really meant. Further, this is a favorite of mine. This is a legitimate club in Brooklyn called Nowadays. The reason why I feel this is really important, it's not like these signs say anything crazy. First one says, thank you for not using your phones on the dance floor. We've seen those before. Please don't use phones beyond this point. Great. Welcome to Nowadays. We want this to be a comfortable place where everyone can have a good time. To that end, we ask that all who walk through our doors refrain from violence, non-consensual touching, phobias, the list of that. Leering, creepy staring. I just want to spend a minute talking about this. This is the first time I've ever seen leering, creepy staring as something that a club owner doesn't want you to do in their space. Who here has not experienced creepy leering or staring? Everyone. It's kind of a sort of violence, in fact. So these guys go so far as to make sure that you understand that if you do this, you are out. And that's commendable. Further, they say that if you see or hear of anyone doing any of these things, or if someone says or does anything to make you feel uncomfortable while you're here, please let us know. All our safer space monitors, bartenders, security managers, sound staff, and door staff can help you. Also, for the sake of the vibe, please don't use your phone, on and on and on. So, great stuff. However, what's great about this club, and what is different between this club using this signage and any other club in New York that just puts up a piece of paper on their wall? It's the fact that these people actually enforce this. If you were to pop a phone open on their dance floor, for sure, within 2 seconds, a monitor will be next to you telling you to please put it away. You have one more opportunity, and if you do this one more time, you're out. I have never been to a club in the United States of America that does that. Some in Germany, sure. If, for example, you leer or creepily stare at someone, a monitor will come to you and warn you one more time, please don't do that again. If you do that again, you're out. If you do anything questionable in that space, a monitor will be next to you, alerting you to this. These people actually put their money literally where their mouth, figurative mouth, okay, mouth is. They pay money to monitors to make sure that their policies are enforced. They don't just take a piece of paper and slap it on the wall, which I'm afraid a lot of the clubs in New York City do these days. They actually enforce these rules. And this is really important. This is why I think this is the best club in New York. They enforce these rules outside of their amazing sound system and great staff and on and on. But to me personally, the greatest thing about this club is that they make the rules, they enforce these rules. Because without enforcement, there's no rules. Law and enforcement go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. Anyone can just put up anything. First time someone sees your rules on the wall, they'll be like, okay, maybe I won't do that. Second time they see your rules on the wall without any enforcement, they will forget about you. They'll just do it. Third time they see it, they will do it just in spite. Just not in spite, out of spite. They will just do it just on purpose because they can tell that you're not enforcing them. So it would follow that you're better off not putting anything on your wall unless you're going to enforce it. Because in fact, if you're putting stuff on the wall and not enforcing it, you're making it more difficult for the rest of the community, people like myself, to exercise, to do their practice. Because if someone goes to your party and there are rules on your wall and they aren't stopped or prevented from breaking them, they're going to come to my party and think that that's the same thing. We can't have that. So if you're going to have rules, you need to spend the resources and the time and the work to enforce them. Here's a party from Berlin called Pornceptual. Here they talk about respect being the ultimate rule, and we have an ask but don't touch policy. And just to be transparent about what Pornceptual is a sex-positive party where lots of sexy stuff happens. So this is why they get into this stuff. Being naked and sexy does not permit you to touch without asking. So this is important stuff they really need you to know before you engage with this. All identities and boundaries are self-defined. All sex and sexual acts are consensual, and violators will have to leave the party. Again, they go down a list of things they found deplorable and will kick you out for violating. We aim to create an environment that is safe for fucking, voyeurism, exhibitionism, etc. And trigger warning, beware that stage performance acts or off-stage sexual performance or other guests might cross your personal space. So they're just warning you in advance that some stuff might happen. Beware, be prepared. Further, they go really far in letting you know that Pornceptual is a safe social space, meaning that there needs to be consent. And the second point here, right here, is a really fascinating thing that I thought is really important that I've never seen other parties include. Be aware of your privileges, which is a wild thing to actually try and call out at a party, including less visible or invisible hierarchies. Think about how your words, opinions, and feelings are influenced and who they might exclude or harm. That's a really deep concept to start to try and wrap your head around when you're entering the party. But it's a really important thing to understand because this is a space that welcomes, again, precaritized minoritarian communities. And if you're not a member of those communities, you need to be aware of your privileges. Calling out, if you have acted or spoken harmfully, even if unintentionally, someone will bring this up with you. And if this happens, listen and reflect on what they're saying. Also, if you think they may be wrong, don't try to absolve yourself of responsibility. This goes back to what I just chatted about with Juliana Huxtable about mistakes and dealing with mistakes and how not to react negatively and try to listen to the other party and work through that and diplomatically. Learning, community accountability. This is really unprecedented stuff. Some of the things they go through, I'm not sure where they got it, but like it's really incredible, amazing stuff. And then they go even further. This other sheet right here is all the same, but in German, just in case someone doesn't understand or read English. So that's really inclusive of them. Next, there's a local party called Spielraum from Amsterdam. And it's kind of akin to what we've been chatting about, but they tell you that please keep in mind that Spielraum is a queer party, and if you're not a part of this community, you're a guest. Therefore, we ask you to behave like a guest, meaning with care and consideration. Let's see further. If you see or experience any unwanted attention, contact, or harassment, please speak out and notify staff. Again, they try to build a community by telling you that you're on the same side with them, that we're all really kind of in it together. And again, there's a list of phobias and things they don't want you to get into. And further, they go into, we stand with all those who demand complete freedom from hatred and harassment. Lastly, we would like to ask you to be responsible and safe, look out for each other, and take care of each other. What does that sound like? That really reminds me of peace, love, unity, and respect. It's really funny to me to see these parallels between stuff from like late 80s and early 90s, Midwest, and a queer party in 2019 in Amsterdam. But it's true that this is where they're getting it from. I mean, these ideas have been percolating and marinating in these communities for a really long time, and here they are. Los Angeles is a party called Spotlight, and these guys are super serious about GHB as well. Turning blue is never cute. Please save your GHB for some other event. Thanks. No, I mean, it's sort of like, no. No cell phones on the dance floor, no photos. It kills the vibe, and you look boring. Also, just tiny bit of humor. Little cunty, just like, please don't do this. And they don't. And then there's a little party called the Closer, which is like a spin-off of Spotlight. It's like a smaller sister party. And here they outline their policies as well. Environment that's free of hatred and harassment, and we uphold a zero tolerance policy for these behaviors. If you see or experience any unwanted contact, bullying, or harassment of any kind, please speak out and notify our staff immediately. Same sentiment. Please talk to us so that we could together prevent worse stuff from happening. Ooh, okay, this is an early one. This happened, I think, in like 2015 or 16. This is like UNTER did a collaboration with the Bunker. This was so early on that this was literally the extent of our policies back then. But even back then, it was like no smoking, no jerks, no photography. No jerks, I guess, encompassed all that stuff that I just talked about. Since then, we've expanded our policies to mean a lot more. This is some of our recent stuff. And this is our stuff from New York. We strive to maintain a safe space where consent is the only way to UNTER, whatever that means. No sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia, xenophobia, or body shaming. Please note that xenophobia is horribly misspelled to this day. No one noticed. No harassment. This includes verbal, physical, and sexual. Respect each other's time, space, and energy. All violators will be graphic, leave immediately. And that's we just kicked them physically, literally. It has happened. No photography, literally that simple. And all of these non-gendered signs go in our bathrooms. And as far as GHB is concerned, we're really, really, really clear about where we stand on it. GHB is actively harming the greater dance music communities. Due to this issue, possession or use will result in being banned for life. Just banned a bunch of people last week. That's about it, really. That's as much time as we had for it. So there's some quick questions that I came up with that I think someone might reasonably ask immediately after seeing some of this stuff. Can I just put up some signs and be done with it? No, you're literally harming the greater dance music community if you're just putting up some signs and are not following up with enforcement. Don't do any signage if you're not going to enforce it, because you're harming everyone else, like everyone in the rest of the community who are actually doing this signage and are enforcing it. This is great, but it's kind of expensive. It doesn't have to be expensive. True, some of these parties, and particularly nowadays, for example, hires monitors and pays them money. Is it worth it? Definitely worth it. Is it really all that expensive? Probably not. If you really feel like it's all that expensive, you can offset some of these costs by talking to people from the community, people who really truly care about going to amazing parties, having a great time at these parties, and asking them to volunteer. Tons of people will volunteer to monitor their own friends, to monitor their own communities. So that's one of the ways to maybe offset the costs. Lastly, is it really worth the expense and labor? Yes, for all of us to have a great experience on the dance floor, for all of us to relate to one another and have an amazing time with one another, to like keep idiots out maybe, or maybe not even idiots, but idiotic behavior. It's definitely worth the expense and labor and the time. How do I know this? Our parties are overwhelmed. We're constantly sold out. Everyone wants to come to these parties. Why? Because it's a safer environment where people can have profound, meaningful experiences on the dance floor with their friends. So it's clearly worth it. That is all I have today. Thank you, guys. Let me know if there are any questions. Any questions? No? Great. Oh, one. Yes. So I can tell you how we handle this issue. We handle it pretty harshly when there is any sort of complaint. Pardon? So just speaking from my experience, when there's a complaint against the person who has either stared or leered or done something undesirable, something terrible to another person, and this person complains to us, to our staff, we kick that person out. There's no discussion, there's no interrogation, there's no investigation. I don't have time to launch an investigation into this. further, suddenly there's like, turns out there's a history between these two people. You said this, you said that, you broke up with me 2 months ago. I don't know, and we don't have time for that. We eject one of them, the one who was complained against. The problem stops immediately. If we were wrong in ejecting that person, I will deal with that later after the party's done. And I always invariably end up dealing with it later, more often than not, for sure. But in that moment right now, I will take the word of the person who has complained. More often than not, it's a woman. If it's like 9 out of 10, it's a woman who's complaining me, or a trans woman, trans person who's complaining. That the other person is out. I don't want to hear any debates, complaints, arguments. The other person is out. I deal with it later. And sometimes later, it turns out there's some prior history, and there's some beef and tea and who knows what. And I leave it out, but I keep that argument out of the party, because to start investigating and dealing with it at the party, you are running a serious risk of that bad energy infecting the rest of the party. What you want to do is excise that immediately. You don't want to kick out the person who complained, of course. So what you do is you take out the person who was complained against, and that solves the problem immediately. You just deal with it later. That happened a lot. I've had to apologize. I've had to refund people. It's okay. I will deal with it later. But in that moment, I just want this problem to stop right now. I just investigate later. Sure, if I have been unfair in kicking people out many times, please, yes. But it's just the last thing I want to do, and my staff, is deal with it right there in everyone's view, just infecting the vibe. I don't want to do that. I just cut it out and it's done. And then later I will accept responsibility. I will pay for it. I will cover it. If I'm wrong, not a problem. I realize that clubs don't really necessarily see it that way, but they really should. Yes. It's sort of the same situation, where if some harm was done or discomfort was caused, that person is out, and then later we deal with it. To be honest, I haven't really had, in like 15 years that I've been doing this, I haven't really had a lot of experience with someone causing issues because of their health issues, mental health issues. Usually there are lots of people with mental health issues at parties, for sure. They usually don't have, they're not, contrary to popular opinion, they're not the ones causing problems. They're usually the ones staying to themselves or in the company of their friends. I've never had to like eject a person who has started the problem because of their mental health issues. People have spiraled out on drugs and we have to take them out. So drug-related stuff, for sure. I've never had that issue. I'm sure maybe that sometimes is a thing. Probably I would just deal with it in the same manner. The matter has to be taken out of the context of the party, because when things are craziness happening, everyone's dancing, people are crazy around you, everyone's trying to have a good time, that situation has to be taken out of that context and dealt with. So if you have the resources to deal with it, staff, door staff, security, who can take that and put it inside some bubble, some safe bubble where that can be dealt with, then that should happen. And actually, in fact, that has happened. Now that I think about it, we have had to like sequester a person who was spiraling out. It was like a drug-related thing, but we had to take this person out. They weren't really in danger to themselves or to others, but they had to be isolated and put into like a really calm, nice, chill environment. We had to find that environment and we had to deal with that person. We just allocated the resources on the fly to deal with it. And that was it. Anyone else? Well, thank you guys so much. Thanks for coming here. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.